Warning, the Renegade Recruiter is not for the soft, timid, or faint-hearted. If you need permission or seek approval from your mother, spouse, mates in the pub, or anyone else for that matter, this really isn't for you. If any of what you've heard puts you off in the slightest, I advise you not to listen any further. You've been warned. Prepare yourself for the no bullshit, zero fluff. Quick, dirty, and uncensored secrets for any serious recruitment, staffing and search business owner who wants to earn more money with less work and fewer headaches, without having to kiss ass or bend over backwards to please anyone. He's a relentless and fearless renegade who will stop at nothing to reveal the harsh, unforgiving, and brutal truth about what it really takes to succeed in this business. He's a guy people love to hate and hate to love. It's your host, Terry Edwards. The Renegade Recruiter is unleashed.
Hello. This is Terry Edwards, Renegade Recruiter, and welcome to this week's podcast. Of course, we're joined by Drew. How are you, Drew?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you, Terry. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Really excited, actually, because this week we're joined by the legendary John McCulloch. Drew and I have known John for, well, I actually think too long, probably about 4 or 5 years, but you're going to find out more about John as we go along. So without further ado, let's get into it.
John!
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, mate. It's always a pleasure to speak to you and your dad.
Good stuff. Just for anyone who doesn't know you, doesn't know who you are, can you give us sort of a very brief background of who you are and what you do now?
I am the evil bold genius. I live out here in Ireland in the middle of a field, and I guess I help small business owners make more money with less work, less hassle, and fewer headaches. I guess if you imagine a very short, bald Dan Kennedy over this side of the pond, my emphasis is less on actual marketing systems. They're important, obviously, and I'm quite capable of putting them together, and that's what I used to do in previous guides. But I think over the years I've become more convinced, and I think it's more fun as well to look at probably the way you run the business and your approach to it, your positioning, and things like your pricing and things like that. Things that I think are not traditionally marketing or viewed as marketing. Yeah. But I think which are easier to do with no marketing knowledge at all, a lot more fun and probably more profitable in the long run. And anyone can write a sales letter. To improve a sales letter, even to beat a control, you might be looking at only a few percent. It's very rare for you to get a sales letter that beats, say, an existing control by 100%. Okay. Whereas if you just do some subtle changes to how you recruit your clients, how much you charge your clients, how you interact with them, you can free up a massive amount of time, vastly increase your profits without having to do any of that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Jonathan, you've raised a number of good points then, but just a few questions, Jonathan.
Yes, Terence. I can call you by the other name if you wish.
For those that don't know, just briefly, on a serious note, you say you're the older version of Dan Kennedy. For those that don't know, could you just give us an overview who Dan Kennedy is and why he's worth listening to?
Well, I'm not older. I'm shorter and bolder, as in no hair.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said you looked older.
Dan Kennedy, he's the guy who he wasn't the first guy to do direct response marketing, but he came along at a time. I think he's been in the business for about 40 years now. He came along at a time when communications became much easier. I mean, we've had the internet for 20, 25 years now. And then in that time, Dan Kennedy's become kind of the number one marketing educator, probably in the world. And his CV, if you like, his portfolio of successes is massive. Well, I've been following the guy for 15 years or something. And it's unlikely that you go to a guy like Dan for advice on marketing, any problem you've got in your business, and he's not seen it and solved it at some time before. I'm trying to think of whom we might say he's like in an industry or in a genre that would be familiar to other people. I can't really think of anyone.
No, I can't either. But he is the godfather of direct response marketing. His name's Dan Kennedy. if you're listening to this and you're thinking, who is this guy? Go to Amazon and he's got a whole series of no BS books on marketing, direct response marketing and management and so on. But yeah, I mean, Drew and I, we've probably been into him for about, 7 years, 8 years, Drew?
Probably longer, actually.
Yeah,
definitely longer. Definitely longer.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I first read one of Dan's books 15 years ago or something. And since then, I've gone through a process of, I went to read his books, read more of his books. So I went to he joined his Inner Circle newsletter thing. He invented the model, really. I've been to his super conferences. I did a one-day consulting with him in November. And of course, I've got an event with him in about a month's time. So, I've come up from being a nobody to probably being the leading educator in direct response marketing in Ireland, and probably one of the top guys in the UK as well. And all of it is down to what I've learned from Dan over the years. I put my own unique spin on things, and I've got my own views in certain areas, and some of it's tweaked and changed for the UK mentality and things, but it's fundamentally the same.
Yeah.
And I find myself, because I've got this event with Dan coming up, I find myself reading back over his old books, some of which I've had for 15 years. And I read stuff and I think, shit, I've been doing this, and I've forgotten the attribution, forgotten the source of it. So there's probably nothing that I do in my business that hasn't already been done by Dan. Which is profoundly irritating at times, but there you go.
Yeah.
John, I do want to sort of ask you more about your event with Dan a bit later on. I want to talk about email marketing and positioning and pricing as well. But before we get into sort of the core content of the interview, can you tell us something about you that most people don't know? So an interesting or funny story?
I can tell you loads.
I'm going to say, you asked that, Drew. I was really nervous thinking, is that a wise question?
Probably not, because anyone who knows me at all or reads my emails knows pretty much everything about me anyway, because I write in my emails. But I guess something that might surprise people listening to this is that I used to be a nightclub doorman. That might surprise most people. And a computer program. But no, actually, I'm very boring, really.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and ugly as well.
And ugly.
So, so John, me and Terry were speaking just before we started the call. We first met you, or I guess sort of came across you you were speaking at a Chris Cardell event here in the UK. So we saw you speak on stage. We then joined your list, and then really immediately, one thing that stood out to me. One, you were sending daily emails, which I'm on a few people's list who do that now, but at that point, I'd never seen anyone send daily emails. The second thing, both me and Terry really enjoyed reading them. We really felt that we got to know you better. You mentioned just then that there's not much people don't know about you because you share it all in your emails. And then eventually we bought your sort of email supremacy course, and you were sort of advocating daily emails. Why, for you, why is email marketing so powerful?
For me in particular, or in general?
General, I guess.
Well, in general, one of the fundamental things about marketing is follow-up. Relentless, remorseless, unending follow-up until they buy or they die or they beg for mercy. Tell you to stop, basically. Because if you think about it, what happens for most places, almost every website has got to sign up for our newsletter. So you do that, and maybe once in a blue moon you get some shitty little email in badly formatted HTML from, say, I don't know, random sportswear or fashion wear firm, and you don't even remember signing up for it, and it's so boring you just delete it.
Yeah.
Well, why would you buy from someone like that? You wouldn't. But if you email daily, or frequently and often, as I would say, which for business to business is at least 3 times a week, and for business to consumer at least 4 times a week, but I would advocate every single day, 7 days a week if you possibly can. If you email every single day, various things happen, and they're all good. The first is people get used to seeing stuff from you. They get used to it. So one of the fears that people have is they'll think you're a spammer. Well, no, then they're more likely to think you're a spammer if they sign up for your newsletter, get one from you, then hear nothing for 6 months. Then they'll think you're a spammer because they've forgotten all about you.
Yeah.
Now they don't remember, you know, how many fucking emails we get every day. We just don't, we just don't remember things like that. So they get used to reading emails by you and receiving stuff from you. The second thing is, people are, and this is a bit of a cliche, but it's true for all that. People will buy when they're ready to buy, not when you're ready to sell. And people, when they sign up to your newsletter list, are not usually in a position to buy straight away. They just don't want to. Apart from anything else, if you're using traditional, well, I say traditional, we're going back 15 years or so to, maybe not even that, to when Google AdWords first started. So it's fairly recent. If you're using search-based lead generation or Facebook or LinkedIn or something, the people searching on Google AdWords at one point, they may have been buyers. It's not so much anymore. There's a whole raft of problems with this kind of email, with all this online lead generation at the moment, and it's not going to get any better. But part of the problem is that people maybe 10 years ago were more in a buying frame of mind, and now they're in a more of a searching frame of mind, looking for information. So they're not ready to buy anyway. So if you email every single day, the morning they wake up and think, shit, that problem I had, I need to solve it today. I've got the money, I've got the wherewithal, I've got the will. That's the day, again, as every other day, that your email lands in their inbox. When they're ready to buy, you are top of consciousness. I mean, I've had people join my elite group months after first saying, I'm really interested, but I'm not quite ready yet. And then I get my daily emails, chips away at it. And they say, okay, you've worn me down. Today's the day. But if I don't email them once, they don't join someone else's group, or perhaps worse for everybody, not join anyone's group at all.
Yeah.
So that's another reason. The way I do it, the reason that works is because I put my personality into my emails. And there's loads of reasons for doing this, because my flagship products, if you like, are the elite group and my live events. Well, the ones I hold in Cork and say the one I'm going to do with Dan. And I am completely unfiltered and unfettered. And the last thing I want is somebody turning up to a live event or an elite group and being presented with someone in the bar and then in the meetings themselves with a man they've never actually heard quite swear in that way before. Always such outrageous opinions.
Yeah.
Well, so if I put those out there in my email straight away, there is no confusion. There's no hiding behind a persona. And that makes it really easy for me as well, because I can just sit down of a morning and write my daily emails exactly how I want. And I've not got to think, well, hang on, should I be saying this in this context? I don't care.
Yeah.
So, that's just a kind of potted, not even a potted history. It's a mishmash of all the reasons that daily emails work. And there are probably loads more as well. If you've got more specific questions, then ask away. But for all these reasons, it works.
Yeah.
It's fun as well.
No, it is. And I remember, sorry, Terry, So we was on your list for about 6 months maybe before it was the first sort of round of email supremacy. You start promoting that, and we bought that. And to be honest with you, at the time, we couldn't actually afford it. I mean, our business wasn't doing very well. Both me and Terry weren't really enjoying it because we were struggling. But then we bought your course and then started sending daily emails, and almost immediately we saw the difference it could make when. One, you're just being yourself in your marketing, which I want to talk about positioning anyway, but just being yourself in your marketing, which, so many of our clients or potential clients, they're reluctant to do. They're reluctant to put the personality across. They're reluctant to just be themselves. When you do it, it's so refreshing, and you get the results for it as well. Yeah,
and the thing is, you just hit the nail on the head there. You get the results almost immediately. It's not one of these things, you go to maybe advertise in a local newspaper or something, and the moron behind the telephone will say, you need to get seen at least 7 times and build up some kind of brand awareness or some other such tomfoolery bollocks. You start daily emails pretty much from the very first email, if you're doing them the way I teach and the way that some others teach as well. I've been doing it every day now since at least 2007, 2006, before I even came to live in Ireland, so it's more than 10 years. If you write them the way that I teach and others teach, you will get results from the very first one. Sometimes you'll get people emailing saying, what is this? Don't send me this anymore. But that's great. But there's one girl, she emailed me. It was about the time we did email supremacy. So that's probably going back, 7 years now, 6 years? It's a fair while now.
Yeah.
And she said, I've got no money. What do I do? So I just said, get your email list and email every day over the next few days. And she did that, and she emailed over. She just sold patchwork quilt type stuff. And she lived in France, and she made more sales over that bank holiday weekend in 4 days than she would normally make in a month. And she just couldn't believe it. And that was the very first time she'd done it. Another guy who was in Elite, I'm not going to name him because he likes his privacy, but he was very skeptical. I used to write his emails for him, and it was costing me a fortune. I said I didn't want to do it anymore because it wasn't worth my time, even though he was paying me a lot of money. I got fed up with it. So he bought email supremacy, and he was very skeptical, but he sent a series of 10 emails, 11 emails over 10 days. He made over 100 grand in sales.
Yeah, we've got so many examples. We've got an example of one of our clients. He was testing his emails. So he sent out an email to his list, and he was reluctant to do email marketing. So all his email said was, hi, test, Martin. That's all it said. He accidentally sent it out. Do you know he actually won business from that?
Fucking hell, that's lucky.
No, you say it's lucky. It just goes back to what you said about hitting their inbox at the time they're ready to buy. Because they knew who he was. So it just sort of jogged their memory and was like, oh, actually, I need something from you.
I mean, the thing is, if you don't ask people to buy, and I ask, out of every 100 emails, I probably ask in 99 of them to tell people to do something, to buy something. Very rarely do I send an email without a sales link in it. If you don't ask them, why would they bother?
Yeah.
And it works on me too. I buy stuff from people. I don't respond well to phone calls and these silly little tricks that people try to play when they say, have you got some time on the phone next week? When would be best, Thursday or Friday? That just makes me wind them up because they're trying to double bind on me, which is insulting to my intelligence, But it still works. People will email me every day. It will still work if I'm interested in the product. That just might be that I'm not interested that particular day, But it can work in the long run. It makes me laugh, people who say that email marketing doesn't work on them, or any kind of marketing doesn't work on them. Oh, it does.
Yeah,
it really does.
Absolutely. And on that, Drew touched on it, you touched on it as well, John, about how does regular emailing help with your positioning and with your pricing?
Well, the thing with daily emails, and it's almost a given, really. And it actually goes back to email supremacy. One of the questions I got, and I think we had some phone calls afterwards, I can't quite remember how it all worked now, but one of the girls asked me, she said she sold, oh fucking hell, what was it? It was motor spares for British motorcycles, and she lived in France as well, coincidentally. And she was saying, well, how many emails can I write about oil? Because they were just launching this new product line of synthetic oils for British motorcycles. How many emails can I write about oil before it gets really boring? And I said, truthfully, not very many. But the whole point is you don't write the emails about the oil. You write an email every day about your daily life. Maybe you can find an easy way to bring in the question of the oil. Maybe you can't. Maybe you just say, and by the way, while I'm here, buy some of my oil. And that's fine. That's what I do. So it forces you, really, to write emails that are not about what you're trying to sell. I would have a really tough time, even though I know a lot about it, I would have a really tough time writing an email that was worth reading every single day, 7 days a week about marketing before I started to repeat myself.
Yeah.
So it forces you to write things that are nothing to do with business, and that's where people really resist it. But, we are a storytelling race, we're a gregarious race or a species. We like to hear about other people's stories. And sometimes we like to hear sad stories, serious stories, amusing stories. You will go down very well if you poke fun at yourself, to self-deprecating stories. But it's also worth having very strong opinions on things like I do. I've got very strong opinions on religion, very strong opinions on liberty, which then takes in all of these things from taxation to the rights for a woman to have an abortion. And I am shameless, and same-sex marriages, I'm shameless about promoting my ideas, what I think about it. People should mind their own business. Whether a woman has an abortion or not is between her and her doctor, nobody else. And of course that offends some people, but it also, for every person it pushes away, it pulls another one closer, because people will share your ideas. Now, over time, you draw people to you who think like you do and who are like you, and that's so much easier for you to sell to them.
Yeah.
We like to buy from people we like and trust, and we tend to like and trust people who are like we are. But what better way to draw people who are like you than to be you, and be unashamedly you and unapologetically you, in your emails? And people say it's not professional, and it shouldn't be on the business list. Bullshit. Being professional is about me solving people's problems, and the best way I could do that is to get them to buy my stuff.
Yeah,
that's professional.
And the other thing
I'm passionate about this.
Yeah. The other thing I'd add to that as well, I'm kind of skipping back to emails, but the problem with the corporate BS emails, with the logo and the HTML and all that crap, that is BS. And most people don't communicate like that. Whereas if somebody meets you, John, in the bar or whatever, you are totally consistent. What you're hearing now, what you hear in the emails, that's John.
Yeah, there will be no surprises.
Absolutely.
I mean, if there are any surprises, they'll probably be surprised at how approachable and friendly I am. That's probably a bit of a surprise.
Friendly, did you say?
Approachable.
Approachable.
I can be. I'm not always an asshole.
Well, I don't know about that. You are an arsehole, just an approachable arsehole.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. But the thing is, I guess the point is, when people do meet at events and things, I'm probably going to be nicer than usual because they've paid a lot of money to be there. So I'm not going to be completely antagonistic. But people who email me randomly on my list and say, I don't like what you said, the best they can hope for is to be ignored. The worst they can hope for is for me to write an email the next day ripping the piss out of them because they just don't care.
Yeah.
And there's always someone. Any strong opinion you have will offend someone. I had some guy years ago who loved everything I did, but he objected to me using one word in a phrase. I used the phrase in marketing spastic. That's right. And because his son had cerebral palsy, he really objected to me using the word spastic. Well, my son's got cerebral palsy too. So if anyone's allowed to use the word fucking spastic, I am. He didn't like that. But my point to him was, there's one thing that I've said in the last 5 years that you don't like, and you expect me to listen to your opinion, and you've never bought anything from me. Rearrange these words in a phrase that we can all understand. You fuck.
So, I mean, John, like one thing I'm sure anyone listening to this would get, you don't care.
If anyone's still listening to this.
If they're still listening, you don't, you're very comfortable being yourself. You don't really care what your, if you can call them potential clients would think about you. Have you always been like that? Have you always sort of been the way you are now?
Always. Have I always? Pretty much. I mean, I suppose I come back a long way now. I'm 52. So I suppose as a teenager, I was perhaps a little bit more trying to fit in with people because that's what teenagers do. Yeah. I mean, when you're a teenager, you're awash with hormones. You've got this heat-seeking missile between your legs, and all you want to do is get your end away. So I guess at that point, I was probably a little bit more trying to fit in just to get a shag. But certainly since my late 20s onwards, when I started doing jiu-jitsu, and then I was an instructor and started my own business, working for myself, all that kind of stuff. Probably since then, I've been a lot less, what's the word, so that I would try and fit in with people, a lot less likely to keep my opinion to myself. I mean, I don't go and force it down people's throats, but if someone asks me my opinion, I will tell them. Yeah. So if you don't want to hear something you don't want to hear, don't ask me a question, because otherwise you could be in for a nasty shot. And I guess I think Terry can relate to this as well. The older I get, the less I care about things.
I'm not sure why you think I can relate to that, Jonathan, but moving on anyway.
You're even older than I am, Terence. So I've not always been like it, but in fact, when I first started, really struck out on my own, because for a long while I was a computer programmer. Strictly speaking, I had my own business, but really I was a contractor, so it's like disguised employment, as the IR35 people would call it. But when I started as a copywriter, really going freelance, for probably a short while, maybe 6 months, until I discovered Dan Kennedy, funnily enough, going full circle, I tried to do it the way that everyone else did it, because I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I would go, but this is absolutely true. I'm not making this. I went to BNI. I had to get up on a Wednesday morning in a suit and go to BNI, and it was like fucking murder. It was horrible. And that didn't last very long. It didn't work very well for me because I was towing the line. I was running my business the way everyone thought you should run your business, but they only thought that's the way to run a business because everyone else did.
Yeah.
So people would say, "What's your best price?" I would, drop it. I didn't stop to think for a moment that my best price is actually a lot higher than the one I'm charging you. So it's perhaps not a question you want to ask me. Things like that. So, but very quickly after discovering Dan, that's when everything changed. And I stopped answering the phone. I stopped giving my phone number out to people. I became much more unavailable. I would not take on work I didn't want to do. I actually enjoyed saying no to people just to piss them off sometimes. And the more there's the irony, the more I got like that, the more myself I became. And I mean, I often write this in my emails that, no matter what you do, you will piss someone off. So you may as well make sure that at least somebody's happy, and that is please yourself. So do something to please yourself. The more I became like that, the more money I made, the more people related to me, and the more they wanted me. There's nothing more powerful than saying to people, you've got looks like a great piece of work we could be doing together, but I'm not sure I want to do it. I'm not sure I've got time to do it. I'm not sure I've got the energy to do it, really. So you need to understand that although I could help you, I'm not sure I want to. People hate that. Although pushing money in your hand, and it's counterintuitive, but it works. So I can't remember what your original question was, but I don't think I've always been like it. But I started fairly early on, and it just gets worse with time.
You're listening to the Renegade Recruiter Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.therenegaderecruiter.com.
And what impacted? I mean, you've mentioned that obviously it had a positive impact on your business, but was there sort of a lag time? Because I know there's going to be people listening to this now who there wasn't a lag time at all. It was literally like overnight you decided to be yourself, basically, and then
it was pretty much like that, yeah. And I started. Let me think. It really took hold when I went to a Dan Kennedy Super Conference. I think it was the first one I went to, probably 2005, 2006. And there was a guy there called Scott Tucker, and he just won the Marketing of the Year award for his work in subprime refis and stuff. He was partly responsible for the recession and stuff, so perhaps I shouldn't say too much about this. But moving swiftly on, and I determined that I thought I'm going to get him as a client, and that was I don't know, the March or something. And I came back home and I had 3 clients and I fired 2 of them because they were pissing me about. I'd listened to Dan Kennedy on the stage and a couple of other people, and I realised that if I would carry on running my business the way I was running it, I was going to drive myself into an early grave. I know I got clients who were saying things like, "We want something different." So you're showing something different. No, we don't want it that different. Oh, for fuck's sake. And I would send them stuff and then they'd take weeks to come back to me and they wouldn't answer their phone. Then they'd phone me, so we need this doing immediately. And in the end, I got back from Chicago and I got into my office in the garden the Monday morning and I sent 2 emails to these people. And I basically said, I'm no longer prepared to work with you. There's no outstanding balance of the work. There's no outstanding work to be done that you've paid me for. So that's it. We're done. And one of them just didn't reply, which was fine. But the other one, this woman came back to me, "You can't do that." And I had this epiphany. Because my first thought was a skip of the heart, I can't do that. But I thought, yes, I fucking can. And then my email was, I just have done. Don't bother me again. She came back, but we need you. That ain't my fucking problem. If you needed me, what I needed was being paid well and on time and not being hassled. That kind of stuff, So in that respect, there was no lag time. And just going on from that, I determined that I said within 3 months, I'm going to have this guy as my client, Scott Tucker. And as it happens, I got him within 6 weeks. And that's how it all took off for me, because he was he just won the award at the Super Conference. But he then referred me to his other top-end Dan Kennedy guys, Chris Cardell, Tom Oren, a guy called Mike Midget, who's actually quite tall, and a few others. And it's almost like the one of those things where the biggest fish in the pond gets a little bit more food, so grows even bigger, faster than everyone else. So a very small difference in the beginning very quickly becomes a massive difference. And that's what happened to me. I became very well known, very, very popular in that kind of circle, simply because I was well known in the end. And that's how it all started. That's my stupid dog you can hear barking, by the way. All my stupid dogs. So that's how it really worked for me. So I guess you could say there was a 6-week lag time, but in reality there wasn't, because I got back and did this immediately, and the emotional relief of not having to deal with this cockwomble anymore was immense. And of course there's other things I did, like putting my prices up, and not taking on shitty work from people. So
on that, John, on pricing, because our clients often, it's something we encourage, but our clients often push back on this. What would you say to clients who say, well, my market won't pay a higher rate or fee or whatever?
Well, the first question I would ask, or the first thing I'd say is, how do you know? And they'll usually come back with, well, because they won't. But that's not an answer to the question at all.
Yeah.
Because does not answer the question how, ever. Because answers are why. So they will come back and say, well, because they just won't. Well, how do you know? Have you asked? Have you tried? And then the more you dig into it, you can say, well, okay, are you the most expensive provider in your niche? No. Oh, so there are people who do charge more than you? Yes. Also, they're able to get these people to charge more money. Oh, yeah, but that's different. Well, okay. How is it different? So eventually, you get people thinking about this, and it comes down to what it ultimately comes down to is a realization. They will realize, already, but you hope they will come to realize that the only thing that's stopping them from charging more, and the only thing that makes them cut their own prices, as sometimes people do, is themselves.
Yeah.
It's the only thing. To say the market won't sustain those fees is only partially correct, in the sense that part of the market probably won't sustain those fees. But if you're looking at that part of the market, then you just need to change your focus on the part of the market that will. Now, if we want to be stupid about this, you might say, well, okay, I can't sell my stereo leads for more than £10. Well, that ain't true, because there are stereo leads out there that go for tens of thousands of pounds. Yeah, you're not going to sell any to me because I'm not a fucking idiot. But there are people out there who will pay tens of thousands of pounds for stereo leads, golf clubs. I mean, golf clubs is always one of my favourite examples, because I have absolutely no desire to play golf. Yet there is a market out there for vastly expensive golf paraphernalia. So, if you're focused on me and trying to sell me even a 50 pence set of golf clubs, you're going to fail dismally. But that's not to say there are not people out there who will pay £10,000 probably for a single club. I have no idea. All I do know is that there are idiots out there who will pay a large amount of money for golf clubs. Now, for me, it's bicycles and cycling gear, or computer equipment, or sports gear, stuff for my gym, things like that. You can sell me fucking anything. It's ridiculous. So, the market will sustain high prices. It just may be that you need to look slightly elsewhere at the market, or look at the same market and approach the same market in a different way. Because the same people, often who will, say, pay, I don't know what a fee is for a recruiter, say £10,000 for a decent employee, will, with the right approach and sales process, pay £20,000 for the same employee to the same agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A good example of when people will pay more. We just bought a Land Rover. Well, it's going back about 4 months now. And we'd already agreed to pay full price. And the guy jumps up from his desk and says, let's go and see what we can do about the price. Comes back and he's knocked €1,700 off the price of the car. But we didn't ask him to. We'd already agreed to pay the full amount, but he came back with an unwanted discount. Well, that's the kind of approach that people do take. They impose discounts upon themselves. One of the first things people will do is offer a discount, say, I'll knock some money off for you, let's see what we can do about the price. All those things when they're not even asked to. Well, that's not a lot different from saying, well, the market won't sustain the full price. It will. You just got to ask.
Yeah.
You certainly offer discounts without a good reason. I'm rambling.
No, it's good stuff. It's even making me think. I mean, again, obviously we teach our clients this, but sorry.
Yeah, that's clever.
It's just, it's the way you put it across. I think is really good. It's making me think about it in a different way as well, and just make me think about the way we communicate this very topic to our clients as well.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's one of those things where, and this is what makes my elite group and your own elite group, to be honest, so important. Because if you're sitting, I mean, I work on my own. I'm in my office now in the garden. The dog's buggered off. No one comes in here. Even my wife knocks before she walks in here. I spend a lot of time on my own, which I enjoy. I'm a loner. I love spending time on my own. But the thing is, you can still, over time, you can lose your focus. You can get into the idea. You can have the doubt creep in. Will people really pay that? Should I offer a discount? And, I guess you guys, you probably work on your own as well. It can easily creep in. But if you're in a group of like the elites and my elite group and your elite group, when you're all together, And you're all saying, yeah, we raised our prices and it was great. And we don't get resistance. And the resistance we do get from time to time, so people we don't want to do business with anyway, it kind of consolidates that view, and it's self-supporting. Now, this is not the same as confirmation bias. I'm not talking about that. This is, it's proof of the pudding. But you can get pulled off track because we are in the minority here. Yeah. Most businesses won't do this. And if you listen to other people's opinions about business, mostly people who shouldn't have an opinion about business at all. I had a guy, I can't remember this wasn't the elite group I mentioned this. This was, I just spoke at an event in January, Michelle's Grow Your Dental Lab Fast event. And I was reminded as I was talking about pricing, how one of my clients from a long, long time ago, just as I got into Dan Kennedy's, it's going back at least probably 12, 13 years now, he'd agreed to a fairly highly priced package of stuff, phoned me in a panic the next morning, saying, I can't do it, it needs to stop. Why? Oh, my wife doesn't like it. Excuse me? My wife doesn't like your approach. Well, who is your fucking wife? The Queen of England or something?
Even if she was the Queen of England.
No, his wife worked in HR, but she didn't like it. Because my attitude, you can imagine what an HR person thinks of my attitude. Christ. Yeah. But so all of a sudden, she'd gained some divine marketing insights that told her that she knew more than or told him that she knew more than I did about marketing. Well, she had no business having a fucking opinion, and he was an idiot for listening to it. But we all do it. We are surrounded by people with opinions about things they know nothing of. They've got no experience or knowledge about these things. But if enough people have an opinion like that, it's easy to get pulled off track, which is why it's really important to be a member of an elite group or something similar.
Now, again, we get that all the time where clients say to us, oh, my wife or my mates down the pub or my colleagues don't think that marketing works. It kind of at times leaves you speechless. It's just like,
I used to. Drew asked me a little while ago about have I always been this way. It is a process because there was a time when I would argue with people like that. I just don't bother anymore. I just don't. And it's kind of one of these things, and it almost sounds like it's potentially self-serving in that. How do I say this without sounding like a complete dick?
Well, I don't think there's any hope in that, John.
No, I think you're probably right. The thing is, when you say these things, it's like in my elite group. If somebody wanted to join my elite group and they've got that attitude, I'll just tell them to piss off. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in trying to convince them of any of this. I only want people who are already convinced of it because it's just too much work.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
And this is another reason for doing daily emails and marketing, because over time you can develop your arguments. And it's a lot easier to write, say, 100 daily emails of a page each than a 100-page sales letter.
Yeah.
Where, and in both cases you take someone from cold to warm and then to red-hot buyer in the same kind of quantity of words, if you like. But doing it from a sales letter is really tough. Doing it with daily emails is fun and easy.
Yeah.
So John, I mean, again, there are lots of people who want to get paid more for what they do. We've heard you talk about pricing, and really, I mean, when you look at the subject of pricing, it's one of the quickest ways and most effective ways to increase your business revenue and profits. And all it really takes is a decision. You just need to say...
It's the quickest way.
Yeah, it is literally the quickest way. So why, even the people that do want to do it, why is there so much reluctance? Why is there so many people that...
Because they're afraid.
Sorry, say that again?
They're afraid. They're afraid of losing business. Now, the thing is that itself is a problem because, one, they almost never will. It's possible. But I always maintain, and again, this sounds a bit counterintuitive, that the people who argue on price, you don't want as customers anyway.
Yeah.
Because even when they pay, if they pay late, they will try their best not to pay, and they would always have a reason, or maybe to pay you less than, they'll either try and squeeze more out of you than they're paid for, or get the same for less. Now, someone who's that sensitive on price at the beginning, it's not going to get any better. It's a little bit like I use a saying sometimes. It's not one of my sayings. It's a quote I got from some writer. I can't even remember who it was now, so I can't even give corrected attribution. And it's something like that: the tragedy of men and women. The tragedy of women is they get a man and they think he will change, and they can change him. And the tragedy of men is they get a woman and she won't change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now these people, you get a client and you think you might go into discounts, even a steep discount, thinking, yeah, well, we'll do it cheap this time, but next time we'll charge more. But you won't. They've got the talons into you already. And sometimes you can become so entrenched, so focused on the work, and this is the sunk cost fallacy. You put so much work into getting that client, you feel you can't let them go if they won't pay you what, even though they're not paying you what you're worth and what you wanted to charge you in the beginning, you feel you can't let them go because of all the work you've invested in the relationship. Not only is that the sunk cost fallacy and completely wrong, it's dangerous and it's poisonous. And it's why you should never really go into discount just to win the business. Because unless you're very careful in your negotiations, and I recommend everybody to a guy called Jim Camp. His books start with no and just no on this topic. He won't be writing anymore because he's dead, which is unfortunate. It's really unfortunate for him, obviously. But if you go into any business relationship at a discount without really thinking it through, but just to get the business, you are making a dick for your own asshole. Because you're going to get really fucked somewhere down the line. And even if the person on the other end of the negotiation doesn't mean to do it, they're not thinking themselves, and all they can see is they want a low price. They can screw themselves as well as screw you. As a buyer myself, I don't want cheap suppliers. I don't want to get ripped off, but I don't want to say a web guy or a copywriter who's struggling to complete my work at a discount or at a low price, because they can't give me if I'm squeezing them, it builds up resentment, and I can't be sure of getting the quality work.
Yeah.
I don't want substandard work. It's a false economy. There's a girl in the States, and I'll happily put work her way if people are interested in this, including you guys. She does all my transcription work. She's slightly disabled. She's got some ongoing physical problems. She's got mental health problems as well, and she's really strapped for cash. Now, some people in my position, and she does, her work is superb. It really is good. She's very conscientious. Now, some people in my position would screw her for every word they could get out of her at the lowest possible price because she's desperate. I do it the other way. I actually probably pay more than I should or need to. And I even bought her a chair for her office, because for me, it would cost me a couple of $100, but it means that she's more comfortable doing the work. And where does her loyalty lie then?
With you.
It's no comfort or joy to me to save some money thinking that, she's really uncomfortable sitting on this, screwed up on a settee. I don't care as long as I get my work.
Yeah.
And that's paid. It's paid back. I got my Dan Kennedy transcriptions done at the usual kind of fee, and she's really happy because she's making far more than she makes through other transcription people from other people who send her work. And my work gets priority.
Yeah. And on that, you just mentioned Dan Kennedy's subscription. Can you tell us what that was about and what you did there, please, John?
Well, the transcriptions.
Yeah, what was that about?
I spent a day with him in his office, didn't I? My day with Dan, where basically I paid him the GDP of a small African nation, several acres of my own skin, and the soul of my firstborn, for the privilege of flying to Cleveland, which itself is a shithole, and spending a day with him in his office, basically talking about my business. And it was the most exhausting 8 hours of my life, but it was fabulous. It was worth every penny. It's paid for itself within a couple of weeks of getting back.
Awesome.
Wow.
And,
I mean, the privilege of spending a day with Dan like that is incalculable.
And what does it? Sorry, Drew.
Sorry, you go. You go.
Yeah. What does it entail? What does this day entail?
Well, it's really driven by you, the client. So he basically said if there's anything you want him to look at ahead of time, you have to send it to him at least 10 days before your appointment. The only way you can get it to him is by fax or FedEx. Because it was a fairly large document, because you can't fax more than 10 pages, I FedExed it to him. And it was basically just a description of my business as it was, where I wanted it to go, how it got to where it is, my own personal position, because I've had issues with my daughter's mental health, which has meant that my business has been just trundling along for a couple of years instead of growing as I wanted it to, which is fine because it's testament to how well I put it together. I could do that. And it was just basically Dan giving me the advice I needed from his vast store of knowledge and experience, what I would need to do to take it from where it is now to where I want it to be.
Brilliant.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I would recommend it to anyone. Not everyone needs it. I mean, there are so many business owners out there who, I mean, I think for it to really pay, I think it would pay anyone. But for it to really pay, I think you would need to have. It's a little bit like people who do bodybuilding and then start taking steroids. The idea for most people, like most people break this rule, is you don't start taking steroids until you've reached the limit of your genetics. You get as big as you can without, and then you take the steroids. Well, it's a bit like that with Dan. I'd suspect for most people it'd be a case of you get your business to an exceptionally powerful point using all the stuff that I teach and you teach that you can get from books and programs, and even seeing Dan in various products and live events. But then you get to a point when you can't go any further without one-on-one help. That's when I would say to people to go. Because otherwise you'd go there and get advice that you could get from anywhere else. Oh, I'm not saying it'd be a bad thing, necessarily. If you've got money coming out of your ears, then by all means do it. But it's a big investment of time and money. It's fucking scary as well.
So, I mean, just on that, John, tell us about your event that you're doing with with Dan in March.
We are doing a thing called the Pot of Gold. It is a 2-day event, and it's deliberately, this was Dan's suggestion. He actually courted me for this over a period of months. And he suggested we do it over St. Patrick's Day. So the first day is the 17th, and the second day is the 18th of March. And it's an event where we are taking. There are two kind of available options, if you like. The first option is you are a victim. You have a hot seat, which means that you fill in a very detailed 4-page questionnaire and any supplementary material. We'll send Dan. I'm in the process of sending some of these off now, and they're very searching questions. And it's an exercise worth doing anyway, even if you're going as a voyeur. And what will happen is Dan will look at those before the event, and he will give you a mini consultation of between 45 minutes to an hour on the day in front of everyone else, and basically fix your problems. And you will be present for. I mean, everyone who goes to the event will be present for everyone's hot seats. You can't record them; you can only record your own. But you will get the opportunity to listen on other people's. And as you know from your own elite groups and things, you get as much from other people's hot seats as you do from your own.
Yeah.
And then that's the first lot of people for the victim seats. And then the rest of the people who are going, it's a larger group who will just get to be present. And I'm going to do some stuff in the evenings, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Dan's going to bring his Rolls Royce along so he can take some photographs, if weather permitting. Stuff like that. But I'm going to go to the casino, stuff like that, really. It's going to be a really good event. And Dan and I are also doing some presentations. We're doing one separately each on the first morning, and then on the second day we've got a thing called Dangerous Dialogue, which some people have seen the video, I think. And it's basically just Dan and myself talking about business problems, and we'll probably base it on what we've seen on the first day. It's pretty good. I'm honoured. I didn't realise this. I thought this was just something Dan did, because this is what Dan does. But apparently it's quite rare for him to pick someone to do an event like this with. I'm honoured. I'm a nobody. Dan doesn't need the money he's making from this at all. I mean, it's small fry. So he must have another reason for doing it, and I've gone into that in some stuff that I've written for my elite group, which I'm not going to talk about here because it wouldn't be appropriate. But Dan's got his own reasons, and I think they're quite exciting. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Brilliant. Sorry, I was just going to say, to find out more about that event, if you go to drewcoaching.com/POG for Pot of Gold, drewcoaching.com/POG, and you can find out a lot more about it there.
Well worth doing.
And this it'd be fair to say, Jonathan, this would be right for any small business owner. But would that be a fair thing to say?
Oh yeah, I mean, my comments about the day with Dan don't hold up here. This is a good fit for anyone. I've been going through this in my emails. If people really wanted to go as cheap as they could and get a hot seat with Dan, they could do it for probably under $3,500, and which it comes to something like £6.40 for a fucking day over the next year. People spend more than that in Starbucks on shitty coffee and crap sandwiches.
Yeah.
And, it's the kind of thing where you will get an idea from Dan, and you'll come away and again, this sounds like marketing hype, and if people don't know Dan, and they're new to him and new to me, they're going to think, oh, this is just the usual marketing hype. But Dan is the kind of guy where you'll get an idea from him that's worth maybe hundreds of thousands, and possibly millions over time. But it's the kind of thing where you get an idea and it's worth thousands straight away. You implement it that day in your autoresponder, and you make more money like magic.
Yeah.
This is what happened to me when I came back from my day with Dan. I've only just got the transcripts back because the girl wasn't too well over Christmas, and I gave her some leeway because I'm not that, it's not desperate. I wasn't desperate urgent for it, and I certainly wasn't sent it anywhere else. But there's just a few things I did since I got back from my day with Dan. Well, I put 4 new members in my elite group, which is an extra $4,000 a month on my bottom line, which over time statistically will mean the entire day with Dan will be paid for within 3 or 4 months. Well, that's gone now. That's been paid for. So, I'm a very happy camper.
Awesome. Excellent. John, that's been fantastic. Really enjoyable, John. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, and I think we should do this again, guys, because we've not covered half the topics we could have done.
No, yeah. I was just literally thinking, I mean, you got my mind wearing, like again, for anyone who doesn't know, we sort of regularly, John's sort of our coach as well, so we regularly learn from John. But even today on this podcast, I've learnt some stuff, and it's got me thinking about things that we're doing in our business that we can change as well. So, I'd love to do it again.
Cool. My pleasure, mate.
So we'll do part 2, because we have scratched the surface here, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually writing a book on premium positioning and premium pricing as we speak. But yeah, I guess I started out when I could probably do an hour or 2 presentation on these topics a few years ago. Now I'm probably renowned as one of the world experts on those topics, because they're not the same thing, but they are inextricably linked together. And I could probably do a day or 2 seminar just on these topics themselves, and I actually might even do that in the coming year.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Jonathan, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome, Terence. And Andrew. Terence and Andrew.
It's just Drew, not Andrew.
Yes, Andrew.
My name's not Andrew, it's just Drew.
Oh, we've got him there. Now we know what winds him up. All right, fellas.
It's a bit like Colin and Connor, isn't it?
Yeah, not Colin. Jolly good.
Seriously, John, thank you very much indeed, mate. Really appreciate it. Yeah, and let's do it again.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it, guys. I love talking to you. I shouldn't have favourites, but my hot seats, my calls with you two guys are my favourites. So I could do it all day. It's great.
Thank you very much, John. And yeah, well, thank you very much. I was going to say something against it, but I won't.
All right, chaps.
Yeah, you take care, mate. This is Terry Edwards, Renegade Router. Until next time, take care, take action, and be relentless.